Hey bro, been packing on those holiday pounds? Maybe one too many slices of delicious pie? Well, welcome to JB Spookatorium, where the saunas are hot and the bodies are even hotter. You know, every year people make the same New Year's resolutions. I'm gonna stop smoking. I'm gonna eat healthy again. This is the year I finally hit the gym. So I'm here to help you stick to that New Year fitness goal with some spooky gym-themed horror movies that are guaranteed to raise your heart rate and get you sweating. Up first, we have Killer Workout, also known as Aerobi-cide, directed by sleaze auteur David A. Pryor. It's a pretty traditional whodunit slasher, except instead of a summer camp or a college campus, it's set in a workout gym in Los Angeles. This is one of those movies I randomly came across back in the Wild West days of YouTube, back when you could type in free horror movies and somehow find uploads of Dawn of the Dead or The Lost Boys. Instead, I found something called Aerobi-cide. I had never heard of it, never seen it, but after a quick scan that revealed a lot of scenes of women doing some very questionable aerobics, I knew I had to investigate. But seriously, what the hell is this supposed to be working? The movie follows a killer stalking and murdering people at Rhonda's workout gym. It's pretty standard slasher stuff, except for one very strange choice. The killer's weapon is a giant safety pin. Of all the things you could use to kill people in a gym, they pick something that has absolutely nothing to do with working out. Hilariously, the pin was chosen because a prop knife broke on set. So they went with the next best thing, which is obviously a safety pin. There is a dumbbell kill at one point, which sounds promising, except you don't actually see anything, so it's completely wasted. And honestly, the movie is kind of boring, which probably explains why it keeps cutting back to the aerobics so often. You'll have an active murder investigation happening in one room, and in the next, women are just doing whatever this is. For a movie that's only 82 minutes long, there's a shocking amount of padding, and I am not talking about the sports bras, including one scene near the end that goes on for almost 6 minutes, and because nothing happens, it feels like 12. Not the worst I've ever seen, but definitely not a good one either. And don't worry, because it's not even the worst movie on this list. Bro tip number 1, getting stabbed with office supplies is not a workout. Up next, we have Death Spa, also known as Witch Bitch, which are two very different titles. Directed by Michael Fisher, who never really did anything else of note, Death Spa moves away from the silliness of safety pin slashers and goes all in on a ghost haunting and possessing the computer system of a high-tech health spa. The premise is definitely dumber than Killer Workout, but somehow it's more interesting in how it's executed, because none of it really makes any sense. The ghost, which we're not supposed to know is a ghost at first, is possessing the computer, but it also affects things that clearly aren't connected to the computer, like a diving board or the tiles in a gym shower, which by the way is filled with adult film stars, because of course we need naked women in these movies. And then there's a chest fly machine, which is one of the least electronic things you'll ever see in a gym, although I guess they tried to justify it by having a robotic voice announce the increasing weight. Still, I'm not sure how chest flies lead to your ribs popping out of your body. One of the funniest moments comes when one of the leads, who was blinded by toxic chemicals earlier in the movie, goes on a romantic dinner date, and the guy feeds her the floppiest looking asparagus imaginable. And I mean, come on, we all know what's going on here. As stupid as the movie is, it's still pretty entertaining. Although for a film called Death Spa, there are surprisingly few actual spa-related kills. Sure, there's the chest fly death, but then you also get someone melted by acid. Why is there acid in the pipes of a health spa? Or the woman who sticks her own hand into a blender that isn't even plugged in? And then there's a guy who gets killed by a frozen fish in a walk-in freezer. At least we get Ken Foree wearing whatever this outfit is, and one of the earliest roles of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air's Karen Parsons. So that's something, I guess. Bro tip number 2. If your gym computer is haunted, bro, cancel your membership. Body Melt is something completely different. Directed by Australian filmmaker Philip Brophy, which is already funny because he's got bro right there in his name. This one is all about the quick fix. Instead of hitting the gym and watching what you eat, why not just take a brand new drug that does all the work for you? Unfortunately, this miracle drug comes with a few side effects, like growing tentacle creatures, developing a massive tongue, or just straight up melting. Honestly, I don't know what the hell is going on most of the time, but considering Ozempic is all the rage right now with influencers and Hollywood, I can't wait for the sequel, Body Melt 2, The Ozempining. The movie is really bizarre. It follows a health spa called Vimuville that decides to test a brand new vitamin on the residents of a small town, without telling them of course, and this leads to some of the strangest and grossest gross-out gags I've seen in some time. The whole thing feels like early Peter Jackson, very bad taste, Meet the Feebles, and Dead Alive.
I kick ass for the Lord!
There honestly isn't much I can say or show without the YouTube bots kicking down my door, but this is one of those movies you almost have to see to believe. There's even a moment involving a pregnancy that turns into a full-blown, cartoonishly absurd nightmare. It's not played for realism so much as pure what the f*** shock. This is the epitome of gross-out body horror, done in a very exaggerated, absurd, almost comedic way. And it's clearly Brophy's way of taking aim at those old miracle pill ads that you used to see on TV. This one only comes recommended if you're really into bizarre, gross-out horror and you know exactly what you're signing up for. Bro tip number 3, if it sounds too good to be true, bro, it's gonna melt you. Linnea Quigley's horror workout might be the only entry on this list that's an actual aerobics workout. Well, kind of. Directed by Kenneth J. Hall, who was more of a special effects guy than a director, although he did write The Clown at Midnight, which is a movie I weirdly watched a lot growing up. When I was looking this movie up, I noticed the composer was listed as John Vulich, and something about that name immediately stuck with me. Then it clicked. John Vulich is the same guy responsible for a ton of special makeup effects on The X-Files, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and Angel. I knew I recognized that name from somewhere. This film, and I use that term very loosely, is basically a best-of clip show, with the occasional aerobics routine thrown in, just so they could legally call it a workout. Most of the tape is just various clips from movies that Linnea's been in, but if you're expecting footage from her bigger, more well-known stuff like Savage Streets, Return of the Living Dead, or Silent Night Deadly Night, you can forget it. It's pretty obvious they couldn't afford any of that footage. They do use a still image from her iconic graveyard striptease though, just to remind you she's actually been in some good movies too. If you're watching this hoping for a fun, campy workout tape, this thing isn't gonna do much for you. For a tape that runs about an hour, you get maybe 25 minutes of actual workout footage. First, there's Linnea by a fireplace, writhing on the floor like she's having some kind of an episode. The third workout, where Linnea and some friends have what looks like a slumber party and decide to do whatever this is, but easily the best workout is the second one, and honestly, the highlight of the whole tape. It's the one by the pool, probably the producer's pool, where Linnea works out with zombies. And the best part, all the zombies are actually friends of hers. There's even been a rumor over the years that Lou Ferrigno was one of the zombies, which I don't buy for a second, because none of them look like a 6'5", 300-pound behemoth. Honestly, I kind of wish the entire tape had just been silly workouts like this. The whole point was clearly to poke fun at aerobics tapes like Jane Fonda's, but there's so little actual working out that I don't really know who this thing is for. Is it for people who want to see Linnea wearing very little, or sometimes nothing at all? Is it for people who want to work out, or is it just something you throw on at a Halloween party for a laugh? I honestly have no idea, but it's a very strange little oddity. Bro tip number 4, always lift with your legs, especially when crawling out of the grave. Hell Spa is a shot-on-video movie, and despite that, it might not actually be the worst movie on this list. It's directed by Mike Bowler, who also wrote the wraparound segment for Things, and directed Things 2, which should tell you exactly where this is going. The movie centers around Benson's health spa, which at first just looks like someone's bedroom. Thankfully, a mysterious man named Mr. X shows up, willing to help out, for a price of course, and that price is your soul. Because yes, Mr. X is basically the devil, and people are literally selling their souls to lose weight. Benson's health spa starts offering a lifetime membership called Plan X. They guarantee you won't pay a dime if you don't lose weight, but if you don't lose weight, Mr. X comes and kills you. At one point, there's a woman who thinks she's beaten the system by working out while also eating donuts at the same time, keeping her membership free. But at that point, why are you even going to the gym? You can do the same thing at home and save yourself the trip. The movie is exactly what you'd expect from something shot on video. The picture looks like crap, the audio sounds like crap,
Recommend termination.
and the script was written like crap. One of the biggest problems is just how long it is. 1 hour and 48 minutes. It might actually be the longest movie on this list, and it absolutely did not need to be. You could easily cut out 20 to 30 minutes and it would flow way better. That said, it does have some of the funniest dialogue you'll ever hear.
Ken?
What's wrong?
There's something out there, and it took my beans.
My favorite moment comes when they visit a detective who's trying to chop an apple with an axe. When they come back later, the room is mysteriously covered in plastic, and he just says, "We're getting ready to paint tomorrow." I'm sure it has nothing to do with the fact that they only rented the room for the day and didn't want to get blood on everything.
My little mind games always have a point.
And of course, even in a low-budget shot-on-video movie, we still must have a shower scene. But with a budget as low as theirs, what do you think she was paid, 20 bucks? With very few spa-related deaths, or memorable deaths in general, this is one you can very safely skip. Bro tip number 5. If the contract says Plan X, bro, you're next. Bloody Muscle Bodybuilder in Hell is basically Japanese Evil Dead. Written, directed, edited, and starring Shinichi Fukuzawa, it follows a bodybuilder who agrees to help his girlfriend investigate a haunted house, and along with them comes a professional psychic. And of course, once they get there, all hell breaks loose. Well, not immediately. It actually takes about 26 minutes for anything to really happen in a movie that's only an hour long. But when it finally kicks in, it's pretty entertaining. The film was shot between 1989 and 1995, but didn't actually come out until 2012 due to years of editing issues. What you end up with is a short, frenetic little movie that feels part Evil Dead, part Ringu. There isn't a whole lot to the plot. People get possessed, and Shinji, our bodybuilder hero, has to hack and slash his way through demons just to survive. The special effects are cheap and often look like they came straight out of a Spirit Halloween, but there's enough red stuff flying around that it can still feel pretty gross at times. My favorite moment is when Shinji has finally had enough of these damn demons, literally flexes his shirt off, and starts fighting them with weight plates and a barbell. And honestly, this short 1 hour movie does more with the fitness angle than some of the other films on this list managed to do at full feature length. If you enjoy the low budget insanity of the original Evil Dead, this weird Japanese homage is absolutely worth checking out. Bro tip number 6. Always bring your weights when investigating a haunted house. The Substance is a little different from the other movies on this list because it's less about gyms and more about dealing with the inevitability of getting older. Directed by Coralie Farja, this satire follows an aging aerobics star and takes the idea of beauty and fitness obsession to some very extreme places. Demi Moore plays Elizabeth, a TV aerobics personality who loses her job simply because she's aging out of the role. Desperate to stay relevant, she ends up taking something called the Substance. It's an experimental drug that promises to create a younger, more attractive version of yourself. And it does, literally. A younger woman named Sue actually emerges from Elizabeth's body and goes out into the world, becoming a massive star. Meanwhile, Elizabeth is left in a near comatose state, being kept alive off to the side while Sue lives her life. The catch is that the process only lasts for 7 days, before they're supposed to switch back. And as you'd expect, things start getting stranger and more messed up as the movie goes on. Honestly, this feels like the adult, more serious version of Body Melt. At its core, the movie is a satire of those magic diet solutions that were everywhere long before Ozempic became the new obsession. I think we all knew someone, or maybe even ourselves, who tried one of these fad fixes at some point, and the Substance is basically a feature-length nightmare version of that. I don't want to say too much more if you haven't seen it, because it goes to some very strange places. But if you want body horror mixed with fitness culture satire, this one's absolutely worth checking out. Bro tip number 7. You can't out-supplement time, bro. Murdercise is basically a modern parody of some of the movies already on this list, especially Killer Workout. Directed by Angelica de Alba and Paul Ragsdale, the movie is apparently meant to be commentary on TikTok workout culture, although after watching it, I didn't really get any of that. What I did get was a movie that feels like it mostly exists to promote a few of the cast's, other adult endeavors. One of the biggest problems with Murdercise is that it came out in 2023, and yet somehow looks like it was shot on someone's phone. And here's the thing with modern low-budget trash, it often looks worse than older low-budget trash. At least something like Killer Workout was shot on film, so it looks like an actual movie. This just looks like cheap garbage. The movie wants to be funny, but none of the jokes land, so what you're left with is a boring slasher, filled with a lot of scantily clad women. There's even a moment where one of the characters just yells at people to look at her boobs, until she's finally killed off. And honestly, thank God for that. The whole thing feels like someone took a porno, removed all the sex, and left only the story, and the acting is pretty much on that level. I'm not even gonna bother going into the plot because it barely matters. There's trashy aerobics, someone who wants to be a serious fitness influencer, and a handful of murders, and that's about it. The movie was crowdfunded, and I genuinely hope the people who backed it got their money's worth, because I want mine back, and I saw this for free. Bro tip number 8. The Toxic Avenger, or as most people know it, the face of trauma entertainment. Directed by Michael Hertz and Lloyd Kaufman, The Toxic Avenger follows Melvin Ferd, a painfully awkward janitor working at a local health club. After being pranked by a group of absolute psychopath bullies, Melvin falls into a drum of toxic waste and transforms into a hulking mutant vigilante. The Toxic Avenger is easily one of the most iconic characters in low-budget trash cinema. I mean, the character got so popular that he even ended up with a cartoon, which is kind of insane, because this movie is absolutely not made for kids. There's so much crazy shit in this movie that I honestly believe there's at least one thing in it that would offend every single person watching. It goes places most movies wouldn't even think about touching, and it does so with zero hesitation. Luckily, Toxie is always there to dish out some extremely messy justice, including one of the most satisfying gym-related kills on this list, where a guy gets his head crushed by a leg curl machine. The bullies who turn Melvin into the Toxic Avenger are so over the top that they're actually kind of funny, even when they're doing some of the most despicable stuff imaginable. Although I will say, for a group of people who act like they're so tough, one of them treats benching 90 pounds like it's some kind of incredible achievement. Bro, that's not even warm-up weight. And also, who is this Corey Feldman looking guy to be making fun of anyone? As far as trash cinema goes, The Toxic Avenger is a genuine classic. If that's your kind of thing, this one's absolutely worth checking out. Bro tip number 9. Never prank the guy who cleans the gym. Alright, so maybe Demons 2, directed by Lamberto Bava, doesn't technically have a lot to do with gym culture, but it does have bodybuilders being forced to fight demons, so I think that counts. This one is basically demons again, except instead of the demons being trapped inside of a movie theater, they're loose in a high-rise apartment building. How the demons actually get into the building doesn't make a whole lot of sense. One of them literally comes into our world through a movie, but honestly, it doesn't really matter. You're not here for the logic, you're here for the carnage. As the demons start terrorizing the residents, a group of bodybuilders ends up having to fight back, and unsurprisingly, most of them die. Actually, maybe all of them. Their leader, Hank, played by Bobby Rhodes, also appeared in the first Demons movie, and just like in that one, he ends up getting killed. Although I'd argue his death in Demons 2 is actually worse. And for a movie that isn't really about fitness culture at all, it somehow manages to cram in more gym-related deaths than pretty much everything else on this list. You've got a tanning booth death, a guy getting choked with a barbell, and another one getting crushed by a chest fly machine. If you've never seen either Demons movie, I'd honestly recommend both. They're completely nonsensical Italian horror films, but they're also insanely entertaining. Bro tip number 10. Always train cardio. You never know when demons are gonna take over your building. Again, this isn't a movie that really focuses on fitness culture, but A Nightmare on Elm Street 4: The Dream Master does have one very specific character who absolutely does. Brooke Thesis Debbie is basically the female version of the school jock. She'd rather watch Dynasty and bench press than do math homework, and honestly, I don't blame her. Debbie's obsession with staying fit leads to one of the most iconic deaths in the entire Elm Street series, when Freddy gets involved and eventually turns her into a cockroach. I do have a couple questions though. 1. Did she fall asleep while working out? Or is she so obsessed with fitness that she also dreams about it? And 2. What kind of hand placement is this on the bar? It's like a close grip bench press mixed with a skull crusher, which isn't really going to do much for her except maybe send her rotator cuffs to Snap City. But it's fine because Freddy shows up and helps Debbie absolutely crush her fitness goals. You also have Rick, Alice's brother, who's into karate and tries teaching her at one point. So there's that too, I guess. Regardless of all the gym stuff, the Dream Master is a dumb but fun entry in the Elm Street franchise. Bro tip number 11, always have a spotter. So what have we learned today? Well, we've learned that there aren't many horror films that are based around fitness culture, and that the ones that do exist usually aren't the best, with a few exceptions of course. And sure, you could add more snippets of characters from other movies, like Julius from Friday the 13th Part 8. I mean, he was the only character who ever tried to box Jason Voorhees, though he really should have listened to bro tip number 10 and worked on his cardio. But what do you think? Have you seen any of these movies? Do you have any other examples that might fit the theme? Let me know down below. Anyway, that's all for today. I hope you put that damn cookie down and stay spooky. Huge thanks to all my channel members, you're the real MVPs of the Spooky Squad. Your support helps keep the lights flickering and the monsters fed. If you'd like to join up and help support the channel, check out the join button below. But no pressure, just watching and liking helps a ton too.